much more. I can do much more.
Tu as très bien parlé. Tu peux continuer.
Parlez très bien français, Sydney.
Yeah. That was about it. The rest is
So I'm actually a
fictional.
bit late, as you can see. So Sydney, you will guide everything, right? And it's recording now.
Yeah, I will do my best. You have to you have to go somewhere else, Floris.
Yeah, I'm still in the station with Wi-Fi, which doesn't work and that kind of thing. So, but I will be listening in. I'll probably put off my camera.
Okay, yeah,
and leave you in a great.
Okay, we're already recording. So if somebody doesn't want to be recorded, then you have to put off the camera. Welcome everybody. First things first, Fred, I think you prepared it in Dutch, or did you prepare it in English maybe?
I think in Dutch, but I can just tell about it in English. No problem.
We're actually a bit in discussion ourselves right now if we want to do the Climate Cafe more often in English, because we have also participants that speak English, like Amar. Welcome again, Amar. Nice to have you here. However, this makes it a bit difficult for us because we usually do it in Dutch. At the moment, I have to say I would let the speaker decide, because if you prepared it in Dutch and now have to switch at the last moment, of course, that's maybe a bit
Don't worry,
problematic.
guys. I'm fine.
Okay. However, good news, Amar, we're already talking about doing it in English more often. So next time we will maybe be in English. Okay, then we switch to Dutch. Nou, nogmaals, welkom allemaal. Niet hele grote opkomst, zal ook te maken hebben met dat een hele hoop mensen waarschijnlijk ook bier aan het drinken zijn ergens. Oftewel ergens in Nederland of ergens op een piste. Dat is heel vaak rond deze tijd. Gelukkig nemen we het dus op en heel vaak wordt heel vaak teruggekeken. Nou, ik heb hier ook een student naast me zitten en ik zal even een kleine introductie doen, want hij vroeg ook net van jou, hoe is het nou eigenlijk tot stand gekomen? Nou, het Climate Café is opgestart door Floris Bogaert en ik. Ik ben Sydney Staks van de gemeente Nijmegen. Ik zal het even kort houden hoor, maar wij hebben sowieso een gezamenlijke interesse voor wadi's. En ik was ook bezig met een wadi-onderzoek, met nieuwe methodes en dergelijke. En toen sprak ik Floris nog toen hij nog bij Touw zat, dus dat is alweer een hele tijd geleden. Toen waren we aan de gang gegaan en we wilden samen met studenten aan de slag. En toen kwam corona en toen dachten wij, nou, dit kan ook best online. En dat is eigenlijk wel heel handig, want eigenlijk op de hele wereld, maar ook in Nederland, wordt het wiel op verschillende plekken uitgevonden. Studenten, professionals zijn allemaal met hetzelfde dingen bezig. En wij hadden het idee van, nou, laten we die bij elkaar brengen, zodat we kennis kunnen delen, elkaar kunnen inspireren. En we vinden het gewoon hartstikke leuk om te kijken waar iedereen mee bezig is. Het is in principe gericht op jonge professionals, maar onze groep is inmiddels al uitgebreid tot jonge professionals, oude professionals, mensen van bedrijven, mensen van gemeentes, hogescholen, maar ook gewoon inwoners. Ik zie dat Frits er weer is. Leuk je weer te zien, Frits. Gewoon een Nijmeegse inwoner die ook wel zeker een expertise heeft op het gebied van, nou ja, eigenlijk best wel breed, hè, maar klimaat, energie en dat soort zaken. En hij heeft bij hem in de tuin hebben ze een gezamenlijke wateropvang en hergebruik, of gebruik moet ik trouwens zeggen, hè, gebruiksysteem. Het is niet hergebruik, maar gebruik. Dus die weet er ook van alles van en het is ook altijd fijn om te horen hoe Frits weer over dingen denkt. Nou, vandaag hebben we Fred. Fijn je hier te hebben. We zijn met een kleine groep, dus misschien doen we toch even een kort voorstelrondje. Pieter, jij mag je ook voorstellen. Ja.
Goedemiddag, mijn naam is Pieter Schoenmaker. Ik loop hier afstudeerstage bij gemeente Nijmegen en gaan een onderzoek doen naar de mogelijkheden om groenblauwe infiltratievoorzieningen multifunctioneel te herinrichten, inrichten en te beheren en onderhouden.
Ja, en dit wijkt een beetje af, maar hij vindt dit ook gewoon hartstikke interessant, dus hij sluit er gewoon gezellig aan. Nou Frits, ik had je eigenlijk al een beetje voorgesteld, maar je mag er nog aanvullen als je wil.
Ja, het is een eigen regenwateropvang en regenwatergebruikproject en op dit moment, het draait al een jaar of 5 en op dit moment is er een pad naar volledige automatisering. En volop meten. En vooral ook naar de waterkwaliteit. Want de gebruikers, dat is een vraag van de gebruikers. Er zit er PFAS in het regenwater. En wil je dit verder uitrollen? Dan zijn wel vragen die je moet beantwoorden naar de gebruikers toe.
Ja.
Dat is, zou ik daarbij houden.
Ja, is goed. Hedwig.
Sorry, ja, nou is die goed. Ik ben Hedwig de Boer. Ik werk bij bureau Pauw en wij werken eigenlijk als projectleiders, procesmanagers aan allerlei ruimtelijke projecten. En dat gaat van onderzoek tot aan daadwerkelijk uitvoering van projecten. Bijvoorbeeld gebiedsontwikkeling, transformaties naar woningbouw, maar ook het klimaatadaptief herinrichten van pleinen. En werk ook veel samen met onderwijsinstellingen die doen onderzoek. Bijvoorbeeld naar monitoring van voor en na, wateropvang, hoe doe je dat nou eigenlijk? Maar ook toegepaste psychologie. Zo hoe zorg je ervoor dat er ook draagvlak komt? Dus eigenlijk het hele palet van beleid tot aan uitvoering heb ik mee te maken. Dus, en hier komt ook gewoon alles altijd aan de orde. En dat maakt het super interessant.
Mooi. Ammar heeft zijn camera uitgezet. Misschien was dat een stille hint. Dus nou ja, hoeft eigenlijk niet... Oh, kijk, Ammar. Yeah, you want to introduce yourself too? Oh, you're still muted. You're still muted though.
Yeah, you pronounce my name, but what you said, please.
What do I need to pronounce? No, now I don't dare to pronounce
No, I
it
think you
again.
said Amar.
Oh yeah, I was asking if you want to introduce yourself for a short moment.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Amar Benaji. I'm a new lecturer here at Hansa University of Applied Science. And myself and Flores, we are working on climate adaptation and mitigation. He's the adaptation, I am the mitigation. And I think it's mainly on sustainable built environment, tackling the built environment energy efficiency and CO2 emission to reach net zero.
Oké. Nou, en last but not least, de meeste mensen kennen hem wel, maar Floris, toch even een kleine introductie.
Ja, precies. Ik hoop dat het goed gaat. Ik zit in de trein, dus houd het ook kort.
Ja.
Floris Boogaard, lector, colleague of Amar, as he said. Ik ken Fred al, misschien als laatste spreker even een opzetje naar Fred toe. Met Fred ook met hogescholen al gemeten, bijvoorbeeld aan verschillende klimaat in de stad. Een van de dingen waar ik mee bezig hou. Dus ook heel erg leuk om te zien wat hij van TNO meet. En wat we nog meer kunnen opzetten vanuit, in ieder geval applied science. Dus echt toegepaste onderzoek qua metingen in het klimaat. En hij doet nog veel meer. Dus vandaar dat ik even contact had opgenomen met Fred om dit verhaal ook te vertellen. Dus omdat het ook een onderwerp is dat vaak terugkomt. Monitoren, hoe bepalen we dat GroenBlauw effectief is of niet? En dan hou ik mijn mond en zet de camera even uit.
Heel
in deze
prima.
bijna stilte coupé. Ja.
Oh ja. Ja, nou mooi. Ja, nou ik ken Fred nog niet, dus ik ben ook heel benieuwd. Dus nou is er eigenlijk een stokje naar je over. Je kan het gewoon met de presentatie doen als je die hebt. Maar ik ben gewoon heel benieuwd naar wie je bent en inderdaad, wat doen jullie allemaal? Want het onderwerp raakt ook aan mijn vak. Ik doe natuurlijk niet zoveel met lucht, maar inderdaad meten en monitoren. Maar ik werk ook alweer samen met de mensen die meten en monitoren voor luchtkwaliteit. Dus ja, ik ben altijd op zoek naar verbindingen daartussen. Dus ja, ook ik hoor graag wat je allemaal te vertellen hebt.
Nou, ik heb wat slides voorbereid, dus daar kom ik zo op terug. Ik zal me eerst mezelf even kort voorstellen. Fred Hartendorf, ik ken Floris ook vanuit de touwtijd, hebben we allebei gewerkt. Destijds zat ik in het ondergrondse, veel bodemsaneringen, grondwatersaneringen, dat soort verhalen. En in mijn overstap naar TNO ben ik meer naar de atmosfeer gaan kijken. Dus ik ben een ander compartiment gaan onderzoeken, maar nog steeds wel op milieugebied. Dus vaak nog steeds dezelfde stoffen, maar in een ander domein. Ik heb een presentatie voorbereid, die zal ik openen. Amar, just to check, is it okay in Dutch? Because I could switch to English if it's better suited for you.
I mean, if you are comfortable with the English, that will be better for me. But I leave it to you to decide.
Well, let's try English. So I think everyone should understand English, right? So that would be. Let's see. Share my screen. Oh, and just
Much appreciated.
no problem. Officially, the TNO language is English, so it's also good for me to practice. It's easy to switch to Dutch. Is the presentation showing for you as well?
Yeah, and for the people back home, it's going to be posted on YouTube. You can always put translate on it. So if you want to see it in Dutch, just watch it back with the translator in YouTube. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's me. I've already introduced myself, so let's go to the content. So first, a brief overview of the work which we do at TNO in my team, because TNO is a very broad research institute, so we do lots of research. I work in the climate and air quality department, so we focus on atmospheric research. In principle, we measure with sensors or satellites or whatever, and we have colleagues who do the data science. So can we predict the point of emission, the effect on its point, or like different heat maps in spatial and in time. We focus on three subjects. So we have the biodiversity, so the nitrogen kringloop, greenhouse gas, and the environment, particulate matter. That's the health effect of air pollution. And I'm sorry, there should be some sort of animation in the. Here it is. So maybe just to get an insight in what we do, just some highlights from last year. So at TNO, we get a chance to, if we should think there are some societal change needed, we get a chance to publish novel point of view. It's a TNO term, it's like a white paper. And last year we published two, one regarding the nitrogen crisis, some points in better measurement detection techniques to help us in discussing and a way out of the nitrogen crisis, and one regarding particulate matter and the health effect that has. And that's one I want to discuss further later on, but I'll come back to that. We work on new measuring techniques. So we have a site in Cabau with KNMI, RIVM, where we already for about 50 years are measuring all sorts of climate parameters, focused on atmosphere. And in this case, we're researching new ways of detecting nitrogen deposition. So one of the large topics being discussed, what's the value of the nitrogen deposition? We'll try to find more low-cost techniques in measuring that. So next to the modeling, we should want to have more measuring points on that matter. Another important subject is particulate matter, but then the ultrafine, so the very, very small particles. It's a topic that's being researched and is expected to have a large health effect. And at this moment, we're measuring at all the airports in the Netherlands, but also in Berlin and Frankfurt. So we're measuring ultrafines and also modeling the spread and the exposure of personnel working on airside, and also the impact on environment, so also the spreading towards the rural areas surrounding the airports. Regarding greenhouse gas, we do a lot of methane research. So we have ships sailing around the oil platforms, detecting the methane emissions. But next to the measuring and detection, we also have a data science club, and they worked on a source apportionment tool. So if you measure methane on any given location, this model could predict the point of emission. We call that TOPAS, TNO Source Apportionment Services. I'm not sure what it's an acronym, but I'm always getting for what it is, but it's a source apportionment tool. So it can give you insight in the origin of the pollution, and also gives you, like a policymaker's instruments to lower the concentration at a given point. We do this for all sorts of topics, also for particulate matter, and this will be an example in the presentation later on. Well, there was a terrorist attack on one of the pipelines in the sea, and we have. Oh, there should be an animation, but no, there's no animation. Anyway, we modeled the emission of the methane to get insight in the impact of the rupture of the pipeline. And at this moment, we're starting a collaboration with several partners for a three-year measurement campaign in and around stable areas, so livestock areas. to further get insight in emission of all sorts of nitrogen and methane, ammonia emissions, and also link it to the operation. So what activity gives what sort of emission, and could you better control emission if you would do your work otherwise? So those are some of the topics from last year, and they will continue in the next years. But as I stated, I would like to discuss another topic, a white paper regarding particulate matter. And these slides are in Dutch, but I'll just talk about it in English. And if there's some questions, please raise your hand. We have all the time, I think. So in Dutch, we call it normgehaald, probleem niet opgelost. I think like we've met the thresholds, but we didn't solve the problem. So it's regarding the policy guidelines of particulate matter in air. Currently, they're based on a certain mass per volume, and well, that's and they have statistically coupled that to a health effect, but of course mass doesn't tell you much about the health effect, because particulate matter is like, could be anything, could be salt from the sea or plastics from a tire wear or diesel emission. So we think you need to focus better to get more health benefits in further reduction campaigns. And the reason that we chose particulate matter as one of our topics that we wanted to address, because it's still a societal, it has a large societal impact still. Well, according to the WHO, about 7 million premature deaths a year worldwide, which translates to 11,000 premature deaths in the Netherlands. That's, well, we have a little graph on the right, just about the same impact as obese. So it has a large societal impact. Although we have reached much, we have really reduced the concentration in the air, but it's still one of the most important topics for premature deaths in the Netherlands and worldwide. And also the societal costs are pretty high. Well, they estimate about 1,250 euros per person per year, and for the whole country that would 10 to 15 billion. And that also includes like costs like the non-direct costs, such what is a month in a health, like a gezonde maand, so a healthy month. So people not only die early, but they have a long sick bed prior to that. So they can't work, they have a less happy life. So that all those costs are further incorporated in a 10 to 15 billion. So again, an important topic, and we should address it better. That's what we think. So this is what I referred to earlier. These graphs are the reduction of mass of ultrafine, of particulate matter in the air. So you can see that we have achieved a lot in the last years. Well, I think about more than half the concentration. But one thing we do see is that the composition of the particulate matter did change. So some of the sources of the emissions are still the same. So like particulate matter from livestock or household combustion, those concentrations weren't reduced. So you see that the total mass reduces, but the composition of the total mass does change. So some emission factors become more important. And we do see that mass, the choice of mass is logically, because if you want to compare effects of policy or policy thresholds over the whole of Europe, you should identify like an indicator that everyone can measure and understand. So mass is an easy one. And again, in the beginning, we had much higher pollution concentration here. So at that time, a reduction of mass was very efficient, because there is no healthy particulate matter, but there are more and less healthy components. So if you have a lot of pollution, then just choosing to reduce mass is efficient. But at this point where we have reduced a lot, the effort you need to do to further reduce is very increases. So it's also a choice of being more effective if you would consider the most critical parameters. In other areas like Eastern Europe, where the concentration is still much higher, there it is still sufficient just to reduce the mass in the first effort. But here, when we have achieved a lot, we should be more structured and more focused. I think the most easy thing to explain is we have well, mass of particulate matter. That's the current threshold. There's also ultrafine particulate matter. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the different sizes, but those go down to the molecular level, basically. So a particulate matter that really doesn't have a mass and behaves more like gas than a solid matter. So that if you would reduce the impact of a substance that doesn't have any mass, you shouldn't have mass as a threshold. That's the most easy explanation I can find. So, and the effect on health is determined by the size. So ultrafine particles go direct to your bloodstream, so they have an effect there. While the more like the PM10, the 10 micrometer, sticks to your skin or to your or you just it doesn't enter your bloodstream, so it has less effect. That's the expectation. And next to the size, also the composition of the particulate matter is important. So you can imagine that salt coming from the sea, it's inert, so it doesn't respond in your body, but active components from diesel engine or whatever can have constitution reactions in your body. I'm not sure so they're very reactive, so they have more effects inside you. So also there's an effect in health effect, and those aspects aren't considered in the current policy measures. So luckily, Europe as well as in Holland and other member states, they are working on better policy measures. So we have the Schone Luchtakkoord, the Clean Air Pact in the Netherlands. It states that in 2030, half the health burden must be reduced. And it's in Brussels has sort of the same point in 2030. And there's also the Zero Pollution Act from the EU, who states that in 2050, I think, there should be no effect from human-induced pollution anymore in water and in air. So it's a challenging date, but so that we are working on better ways, but we aren't working on the threshold. So we think this is a very good idea, and we support it fully. But if you would want to achieve this, we should have a different look at how we measure and deduce the policy measures. Well, we did some work already together with DCMR in Rotterdam. So we had a look at concentration of PM10, so the stand component, and the particular number of ultrafine particles. So in the light blue, you see the mass concentration of PM10 in Rotterdam, and in the purple, you see the ultrafine particulate number. That's a different unit because as ultrafine has no mass, we use a particle number instead of mass. But you see, if you look at PM10, then, well, you'd say, well, industry is perhaps the largest emitter. But if you would look at ultrafine particles, you see that scheepvaart, so shipping, has an enormous impact. So if you would just focus on the mass effect and have your policy measures taken in place, you would, well, first have a look at the industry and reduce the emissions there. But if you want to reduce ultrafines, you really should look at shipping areas. So, and that you will not see if you would just stick to your normal operation. So, and then there's this was the mass versus size and weight, and there's also the idea of the composition and the effect. So the toxicity for different components differs, and it's still a research topic, so a very low TRL. I'm not sure if that's the technology readiness level, so we don't know all yet. But the first results, you see the graph here on the right, this is a comparison to different health effects of different mixtures of particulate matter. And the first three stuffs are all related to combustion processes, so diesel, benzene, houtstoke, wood burn. That's also a very important parameter. And if you go all to the right, see the most right is, I think, ammonia sulfate, so linked to agricultural areas. So that it is a large particulate matter emitter, but if you would look at this research, it has a lesser effect on health. And also, that's the next is woestijnzand, so just sands on the deserts. That's also maybe you've all seen it on your car. Sometimes in the summer, you have like the yellow sand on your car. That's also particulate matter from desert areas, but it doesn't really have a large health effect. So you should also look at, again, what is the composition and what's the health effect, and focus on the most threatening compositions. And there's a way to measure it at the moment. So it's called oxidative potential. It's like an indicator for the reactivity of the mixture inside your body. So in what way could it induce ontstekingsreactie? I'm not sure what the English word for that is, but
I think inflammation.
yeah,
reaction.
inflammation, indeed. Yeah. And that is a direct link with the health risks. So, and this is something we can measure at the moment. We work together with the University of Grenoble for that, and also DCMR. And it's also possible to model it. So if we have the measurements, we can also make the heat maps over Europe. So that's the next picture. So here you see a comparison with oxidative potential on the most right. And on the left is the traditional way of identifying the health threat for PM10 from Mars. And as you see, North Africa, where there's lots of Sahara sand, that's really the most threatening for if you look at that picture. But if you look at health effect, that's not the most threatening. Then there's more surrounding the more industrial areas like northern Italy or Rotterdam. So and that is really the health risk. So if you would need to focus on ensuring better health, you should focus on that areas and not just go by mass. So I think I've also presented this for colleagues in Brussels. So it's particulate matter is like a blanket covering all of the world. So it's always there all of the time, and it's influenced by all the member states in Europe, for example. So we model and measure all over Europe as a TNO. So this is our model predicting the spreading of particulate matter over the continent. I think the video is being, well, there was a video. So if you would tackle this problem, you should work with municipality, with provinces, with member states, but all over Europe, you need to work together. So also at this moment, the air quality directive is under review in Brussels. So we have also submitted a zienswijze overview on this. Is basically this story, and that also oxidative potential measurements and ultrafine should be included in the network, so that we can just focus on really improving health and doing effective policy measures. So, and we are developing tools for that. So also at the beginning, I already mentioned TOPAS and the methane source emissions. We do this on a daily basis for environmental particulate matter concentration. So on the right, you see a picture from the TOPAS tooling. It's open source. And for any given location in the Netherlands, we give the expected sources of the particulate matter. So is it wood burn, or is it industry or cars? And we also give the location. Is it from Germany, Belgium, sea? So it already gives you insight in what is measured here and what are the major sources. So you could have a discussion with your municipality or your province to work on reducing those effects. And on the left side is a picture of Eindhoven. This is done by RIVM. It's a yearly map of the Milieugezondheidsrisico indicator. So basically the expected health effect of air pollution. And you see large gradients in Eindhoven. This long stripe is Eindhoven Airport. So it also, well, given the location where you are, it gives the effects not everywhere is the same, so you need to be more local. And at the current situation, we have yearly maps on a 2 by 2 kilometer scale, so that's not enough to really give insight in the health effects. So that's also something we're working on. So we have an air quality modeling program focused on really giving insight in personal exposure, so like a 20 by 20 meter scale. That's our goal. And that's something we're working on with citizen data. So the TOPAS tool I briefly mentioned was a European tool that uses the national monitoring grid. So we have the RIVM, so every member state has its own grid. But now we can also incorporate citizen science data. So NIVM has a site called Samen where all civilians can upload their own data points. And we assimilate all those data points in our air modeling program. And also for Samen. So anyone who's doing their own measurements can use Topaz to give insight in what is the, well, I've measured particulate matter, what's the most dominant source in my surroundings. And it's just a free tool that people can use. And next to the source apportionment like this, we also use it to create real-time heat maps of air pollution. And we already did so. And again, as I said, we wanted to go to a real personal exposure, a personal health indicator. And by using the citizen science data, we can make much more fine-grained maps. So lots and lots more detail. Because, well, the particulate matter, as I said, is like a blanket over Europe. It's well, basically, if it's wind from sea, it's okay. If it's wind from the east, it's from Poland and Ruhrgebiet, then it's not okay. So that's the first thing. But then again, you have very local impacts like wood burn or traffic that can have another effect on your health effect, and that's something you don't see in the large grids of the current model. So therefore, we need to be more fine-grained in those predictions. And another thing we're working on, that's also with citizen data, is well, this also should be an animation, but well, if I explain it, will also be I think clear. We have a large network in Eindhoven at the moment. We have on 55 sites. We have sensors near the airport, near agricultural areas, and in the city center, measuring PM and NO2. It's all public, so we publish the data every 10 minutes. And another company from Eindhoven, Zicht op Data, has dynamic population maps. So what we did is we put our pollution maps and we match it with the population maps, because, well, if you're not exposed, you don't have an health effect. So it's pretty obvious, but so you and at the current situation, the health effect is estimated by yearly average maps on postal codes. In that assumption, you assume that people are at home all the time, and that's the exposure point. But, well, people aren't at home all the time. People travel. So if you really want to get insight in exposure and the health effect, you need to take into account the location of the majority of the population. And that's what we're doing at the moment. And we're developing this tool for other municipalities, and we hope to have it finished next year. And in Eindhoven, we already see that, for example, the Vestdijk is a road where it's traffic dense. So it's also a focus point for municipality to have lower traffic because the emissions are high. But if you take into account where the people are, then it's not the most important site. It's on the edge of city, but because there are more people there on the street, so there's more exposure. So there's already an insight you wouldn't have gotten just by looking at one data set. And we can only do this by using citizen data to further enhance the data set. So that's an interesting one. What we're trying to do at the moment is trying to get this idea of a new way to look at particulate matter, new policy measures to build a community that wants to work on that with us, because we need to all of Europe to achieve this, to do the new measurements that get insight in the emission factors, which particulate matter is more dangerous than others, so like the oxidative potential measurements, including that in our air quality modeling, and finding we call it a health relevant indicator. So like mass is a very easy one, everyone understands mass, but how do you derive one health impact indicator from all those measurements? That's still an ongoing topic, and it will be a research topic for years, but it's something we want to achieve in the end. And if you know that, you can effectively have local measurements of local policy measures to ensure the health of the inhabitants. So that's the those are the 5 steps. We're not there yet, but we have started already, so I'm sure we'll get there in the end. Yeah, an important one, as I said, we need all of the parties involved to join. So we have submitted our proposal in Brussels, and we hope to do a workshop in the European Parliament soon, to inform them of these ideas. We're already in discussion with our ministry here and NIVM. We are working with local governments, so province of Noord-Holland and Utrecht. We're working with people, for example, surrounding Tata. The idea that I showed with Topaz, where we use citizen science data, if you turn it around, they can also use their own data to use our model to get insight in the emissions from Tata, for example. So you can, as a citizens collective, you can have like a controlling option to control the sources and see if the legislation is still in place. Well, we work with different knowledge institutes all over Europe, industry as well, because also large industry are working on trying to find what their role in the whole emission picture is, and also if we find certain air pollution that's more health threatening, helping them to maybe adjust their production process to use different materials so they would have less effect on health. And last, the NGOs, Longfonds and Urgenda, for example, are very interesting partner for us because they keep putting this on the agenda and it helps us in further setting out our research agenda. So that's a very important topic as well. And as said, we're already doing the first oxidative potential measurements with DCMR and also the ultrafine. And at the moment, we're working on a national proposal together with RIVM to, well, as a first step, include the ultrafines in the national grid. So that I hope that will be done soon. And will be a role model in Europe to have achieved that. So that will be a great success. So to sum it up, we want a different approach to get more health effect because currently we see that's maybe good to mention. I showed the graph where the mass reduction you showed, and then 2015 you see the sort of like the asymptotics. I'm not sure so the reduction is limited again, but also the health effects are also limited. So we do a lot of effort, but we have less health effects. So it's at this time we do need to do things differently because not all particles are equal and have a different impact. So and we need to do this together. That's basically the idea. All right. And if you want to know more, on this website you find all sorts of articles and other research topics. And on the Tino website also more, but not much on water, I'm afraid. So that may be something we should do together.
That's not a problem. Thank you very much, Fred, for this presentation. It was really interesting, even though I'm usually interested in water, but that's not always the case. I'm interested in public health as well. And yeah, I think this gives a great insight in for me, an update in the current state of technology. So thank you very much for that. And yes, we go to the questions, and Amar is raising his hand, so he gets a turn.
Yeah, thank you for your thorough presentation. I learned a lot today. I would like to know in a 3D way. I'm interested in urban heat island, and I'm wondering if you come across within your study about what's going on in terms of kind of in 3D. Are these measurements, for example, at a level of, let's say, 180 or 2 meters at Dutch height, or it's lower or higher, like we do with urban heat island? We have kind of a 3D simulation or measurement to have really understanding of how this affects the space.
Yeah, well, the network in Eindhoven is on lamppost just to get it out of reach of people for mostly. So it's I think about 2 meters. In our models, we do land use and just spatial influences. So, for example, canyoning. If you have large buildings next to the buildings, you can get an increase in particulate matter because the wind flows are influencing the concentration of the particulate matter. So that's something we do include. And currently, we're investigating to also for nitrogen deposition, for example, how do tree lines or canals or influence the deposition process. So also, could you make your rural area differently and have less effect on nitrogen deposition? That's also something we include in the air quality modeling. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bart met Wim.
Wim, your sound is on. I'm not sure if that was to me. Right. I will ask a question in the meantime because what I really like is that you guys are focusing now on these different compositions and different particles, and well, it went back to my own study when I also did some urban environmental management studies that they already addressed the difference between the different particle matter size. Between PDM10, 2 and the others, and then already the ultrafine particles were introduced. However, I noticed that you had the oxidative potential. I think that's really awesome. But I noticed that it was only given for PM10. Is that correct? Is it all at this moment? Is there like the oxidative potential from the different compositions of PM10, or is it already a bit broader than that?
Well, it's just it depends on your sample, but it's just an indication of the mixture you have sampled. So it could be also other fractions. I think now we did PM10, PM2.5. Also because ultrafines are somewhat difficult to get, so that's also something in development. So it's not.
Okay.
It's also really early stage research, and we also hope in the end to find a marker that more easily explains the health effect. But that's just combining data sources. So
Because it should be applicable on different sizes. However, it should be different for the ultrafine particles, right? Because they have a totally different health effect.
Yeah.
Okay, then I understood that right. That was my main question. But still, great development. A way big step further than what I used to know about it.
Thank you.
Other questions? Frits, I think. Yeah, you raised a hand. Go ahead, Fred. Just put on your mic.
Can you give an indication how much fine dust will come down with rainwater?
Yes, I think so. But I'm not. I have to ask my colleagues. But yeah, and I know that those are things are also included in some air quality modeling. But I have to check.
That's a really interesting question, actually, also because of the changing climate, and of course that the rain events have an effect on the particles in the atmosphere. That's a nice one, Fritz. Yeah.
We did some experiments with wet deposition of nitrogen, so that's also a particular matter for. So we did some tests with that, also to include sensors to get a better insight. Yeah, but I'll come back to you. I'll check. Yeah.
Maybe it's on the site also with information on it. All right, very good. So you already told about finding the next markers, so that those are the big next steps you are looking for. Or what are the great other developments we should look at in the future?
Is that a question to me or? Sorry?
Yeah, it's kind of maybe others, but I think to you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe we also have a sensor development program. I couldn't show all today. So in a lab in Eindhoven, we work on new particulate matter sensors that give you real-time insight in the composition. So that can help in the source apportionment more directly, but also in the expected health effects. So that's one thing we're working on at the moment. Also more low-cost ways of measuring ultrafines, because that's still an issue. There are sensors, but they aren't really good or costly. So if you want to include in sensor networks, we need to find some different techniques. So that's also something we're working on. And the oxidative potential health indicator, that's the major challenge, to be honest. So that's really that will take some years, but and also there are also other parameters you could use. So there's also scientifically some arguments on where to go for. So, but we've chosen the oxidative potential at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Super interesting. All right. So if there are no other questions. Oh, nobody anymore. Okay, that's just great, because then we almost finished within time. That's pretty unusual for us, but it's nice because we don't want to have the speaker to talk the whole time. Some room for discussion, and also we want to be at home in time for dinner. So thank you very much, Fred. I think we will see and hear more about the research and the things you're doing, especially because you're working with so many other stakeholders. Also, it's great to see that TNO, of course, already known from TNO, but working with this many people, and especially the citizen science. I hope to see that that more people are joining that. It's another topic, but maybe for a later time, and maybe you know somebody for that as well. How to include them? How is the response? And how do you use that data? Because that's also always a question if you use citizen science. It is upsides and downsides. But nice to see that you're taking it seriously. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for having me. So
yeah, giving it
Thank you.
digital applause.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for the people that are watching later or now, next time we're going back to a topic we had before. It's about the climate adaptation of airports. This time it's for international airports, because Nenko was really enthusiastic about speaking, but he didn't have enough time to talk about everything. So we gave him another opportunity to talk. It's international airports, so that will be in English. So for the next ones, heads up. And then we're going to talk further a little bit back to water. However, actually now we maybe are inspired to talk about air pollution as well in that one.
Okay, fine. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. We will ask it if you took that in account. Yeah, so nice. So if you're interested, Fred, of course, you're welcome as well. And everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time at the GroenBlauw Climate Cafe. Floor is yours, everyone.
Yeah. Yes.
Thanks.
Greetings for everyone in Schiphol. All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for that.